actually putting his own political future at stake during the time of the civil nuclear deal. But I think the real story is that during the time when he was the prime minister, the world saw the global financial crisis. And if you go back to Barack Obama's words, because Barack Obama too knew his economics, when he said that when we met to look at the ramifications of a new fiscal stimulus program to keep the economies going and not get devastated like the Great Depression did, they said when Dr. Manmohan Singh spoke, we all listened because here was a man who had the pragmatism, the wisdom, and the knowledge. And I think the economic aspect, because that has a fallout on the political systems that emerge. And we all know, for example, the failure of globalization has led to a different kind of a political model in different countries. So I think the success in keeping the global financial system working, India became a very crucial linchpin. I think Dr. Manmohan Singh had a very, very critical role to play, not just in India, but I think his influence was even global. And to add to what Ashok said, for any prime minister, Rahul, Pakistan will always be the perpetual elephant in the room that you cannot ignore. I mean, even Mr. Modi, when he became prime minister, did engage. I mean, he pulled back later on the issue of separatists in Kashmir being part of the dialogue. But that's another story. You can't ignore the Pakistan, China neighbors being a dual threat. And whether you choose to engage or go into a frozen turbulence, it is a political strategy that will always come with a double-sided risk as well as an opportunity. But I do believe that a lot of people were critical, Rahul, that the UPA government did not militarily attack Pakistan after what happened on the 26th of November. But people who look back and say, listen, at that point of time, to engage in a military conflict could have had a very, very negative repercussion as well. So these are calculated risks that but I think eventually he was a man who cared for the country which he led. And I think he always looked at the interests of all sections of society.
But there, Ashok Malik, we've seen a paradigm shift from a time when terror attacks were commonplace, and while there was a lot of criticism of those attacks, there was no real action on the ground. Post that, we've seen India becoming far more stern on terror attacks, ensuring that there are consequences. So in that sense, a big change between the Manmohan years and what we've seen over the past 10.
There was a big strategic argument, really, which many people have not really commented on, or apart from buffs, really, between the Manmohan Singh team, which was a very, very competent team and a very experienced team, and the national security team of Mr. Narendra Modi, Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The argument essentially is this: is there space for conventional action in Pakistan or in Pakistani-held territory under the nuclear umbrella, and how much of that space does exist? In 2008, after 26/11, it was decided here in Delhi that that space was non-existent, that did not exist. Puri and the 2019, the bombing in 2019, Balakot, both showed us that space exists. That space is not infinite. Okay, you can't keep experimenting with that space and forever. But there is space, and that is the fundamental shift that has come about in the post-2014 period. It is a lesson for not just India but for Pakistan as well.
What is also striking is just how simple Dr. Manmohan Singh's life was. Before Arvind Kejriwal and others made such a big deal about being the Aam Aadmi, Sanjay Jha, he was the original Aam Aadmi. I remember stories being told by officials at the RTO about how he came while he was Prime Minister for his license to be renewed without any fanfare, without informing the officials, without seeking any special permissions. He just showed up to try and get his license renewed. And even around him, while he was Prime Minister and even later, he never sought to create this impression that he was the one getting things done. Being low-key, allowing for things to happen but not wanting to seek credit for those achievements was a hallmark of Dr. Singh's life.
Yeah, Rahul, absolutely. I'm so glad you mentioned that because how many people know of his humble beginnings? I mean, he came from a very simple home. He actually studied under lights, and then to succeed academically, land up in Oxford and the Cambridge. And if you look at his entire career, there's no flamboyance. A very understated individual. I just feel that for everyone watching your show right now, and I'm hoping many people are, because this is a great way to kind of give our tribute to the wonderful human being that he was, besides being a good prime minister, is the fact that we need politicians and leaders who are like Dr. Manmohan Singh. I hear a lot of people saying that we don't make them like him anymore. But I'm saying, why not? We should aspire to build that kind of a standard where you work for the people, you kind of remain, yes, we need to be visible, etc., but we remain people who are finally committed to delivering on services for the common people. And I think it's a remarkable story. Can you imagine an intellectual, academically bright, globally recognized, who kind of at no point was into I, me, myself. And I think that's a lesson across political parties that all of us can get inspired by. And I was one of the people who felt, and one of the reasons why some people got angry with me was the fact that I felt that the Congress party should have done more for him politically. Because when Dr. Manmohan Singh became prime minister, he wanted to focus on governance, he wanted to talk about economics and take India forward into the global league, which he did. But the politics had to be managed by the Congress party. And that was, I think, very clearly understood. But in the failure to not handle the India against corruption agitation of Anna Hazare, I think Dr. Manmohan Singh lost a lot of his momentum and his confidence. But yet, you're absolutely right, his greatness, his humility, and his remarkable success coming from a small village in Pakistan to today is quite a story.
In terms of approaches, Ashok Malik, it's very difficult to have two people as contrasting in their approach to work. Dr. Manmohan Singh never won an election on his own. He was, the prime minister for a government which was run from behind by Sonia Gandhi. And that's something that even in his comments to aides and advisors who've written books, he's quite clear about. There can't be two centers of power. There's only one center of power, which is Sonia Gandhi. I'm getting the job of the party done. So he was quite clear about it. Versus now, where we have a situation where where Narendra Modi is so front and center in everything that the government does. It's all happening in his name, it's happening in his stead, it's happening in his image, and that's the message that's being sent. So two very, very different approaches at play.
Two things here. One, as individuals, they actually share a lot of attributes. They're both self-made people. They both come from very humble backgrounds. Both of them are sons of fathers who ran small shops. One ran a tea shop, one ran a dry fruit shop. They've both come up the hard way. Dr. Singh learnt about life in the classroom, and then, of course, while working in government. Mr. Modi learnt about life as an activist. They're both, in a sense, self-taught. And they're both self-made men. And the iconic and inspirational value of the story of a self-made man, or a self-made individual, sorry, who makes it from virtually nowhere to great success to the highest office is remarkable. And that is what makes Dr. Singh and Mr. Modi an inspiration and a figure of admiration, even for people who may not vote for them. Having said that, they were both also very hardworking people. They're both very frugal eaters. I know they're frugal eaters. It's Mr. Modi is a frugal eater. Dr. Singh was a frugal eater. They're both very hardworking. Mr. Singh devoted a lot of time to his duties as Prime Minister. So does Mr. Modi. That is what is common to the two of them. What is different is Mr. Modi is clearly the leader of this government. The votes have come in his name. He has taken responsibility. His party has given him that leadership and responsibility. The successes are his, the failures are also his. In Dr. Singh's case, quite honestly, that was not always clear. Some time ago, Sanjay Jha spoke about how President Obama referred to Dr. Singh's understanding of the global economic crisis after 2008, after the global financial crisis. He's completely right. Dr. Singh's analysis was spot on. He was very respected in the early meetings of G20. Absolutely. Everyone listened to him when he spoke. But do consider what happened at home. While trying to recover from the global financial crisis, we ran into a spending crisis. A domestic spending crisis. We had a bank problem. We had an asset inflation problem, which by 2014 had become a full-blown drag on the economy. And that also happened under his watch. I'm sure personally he did not want that to happen. And he recognized the failures. But because he was not a prime minister in charge of the government, because he was not the leader of the government, it was allowed to happen.
Okay, so we're
I
seeing
don't
now
think
the
that would have
cavalcade
happened if
of
it been
Prime
the leader
Minister Narendra Modi driving into Nigambodh Ghat. He'll be joining the funeral services of former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. There was an unseemly controversy about the memorial site. The government has tried to settle it by saying that a memorial site will be found at the earliest, that the Congress is doing needless politics. The Congress making a big deal of the fact that a memorial site hadn't yet been found. They were of the view that the cremation should have happened at the memorial site itself. Anyway, that's hopefully now in the past. As Pawan Khera said, this is not the time to talk about that controversy. It's a time to focus on the life of Dr. Manmohan Singh. And what is interesting, Sanjay, is that here's a person who comes to different parts of government, whether it's as chief economic advisor, whether it is as RBI governor or deputy chairperson of the planning commission. And there are occasions when he goes to New York, he goes to Geneva, works on UN trade and development, and what ultimately became the South movement. He then decides to come back. So here's someone who has that spirit of public service, wanting to give back. He's encouraging others like Rakesh Mohan, like Montek Singh Ahluwalia to join him in government as well. And even if he had the opportunity of a plush posting in Geneva, he still has the craving to come back and contribute to some way in nation building.
Yeah, absolutely, Rahul. For example, I believe that Dr. Singh pushed the boundaries. He pushed the envelope. Now, he was a bureaucrat. He was an economist. But the truth is, he was fully aware when he became both the finance minister as well as particularly when he became the prime minister, that the world of politics is very shark infested, that there are various interests, that many people, including Dr. Mukherjee and others, aspired for the post that he finally got. So I think, his ability, his very calm temperament, which allowed him to work with colleagues who he knew were at the end of the day having a lot of angst because he was occupying the 7 racecourse rows, that it was called at that point of time, and his ability to kind of stretch beyond that and focus on what he believed he could do best, play to his strength, give India a stronger economy, lift the people out of poverty, increase the size of India's middle class. I feel, Rahul, that the Congress party here has missed the big contribution that Dr. Manmohan Singh made, was to give the Indian middle class the story that it deserved.
I tell our viewers, give me a second. That's Admiral Dinesh Tripathi, Chief of the Naval Staff, and before him, AP Singh, the Chief of the Air Force Staff, coming in to pay their last respects to Dr. Manmohan Singh. So we're seeing the service chiefs come in, play their last respects. The Prime Minister will be there as well. But Sanjay Jha, go on.
So I feel, for example, if you look at the 1991 liberalization, it led to an India that began to develop a stronger purchasing power. A lot of the migration from rural to urban India began. Manufacturing increased. Exports did well. And over the period of time, and let me also say that the Vajpayee government did its job well. And end of day, under Dr. Manmohan Singh, we saw the emergence of a middle class. And that middle class is what basically voted for an endorsement of Dr. Manmohan Singh in 2009.
Okay,
Rahul,
we're seeing images of, just a moment, we're seeing images of Narendra Modi, the current Prime Minister, coming to the Nigambodh Ghat for the last rites of Dr. Manmohan Singh, even as UPA chairperson Sonia Gandhi lays the wreath on the hearse of Dr. Manmohan Singh. You see Amit Shah, the Home Minister, Rajnath Singh, the Defence Minister, and right on the second row are Chief Minister Sukhu from Himachal Pradesh, former Haryana Chief Minister Bhupender Singh Hooda, and in a short while the Prime Minister will be going to lay the wreath, as well as also the senior ministers. We're seeing right behind the Prime Minister DK Shiv Kumar. We're seeing also Ramdas Athavale, Siddaramaiah, the Chief Minister of Karnataka, that's Jagdeep Dhankar, the Vice President, who's just joined the front row where the dignitaries are gathering for the last rites of Dr. Manmohan Singh. A very simple ceremony. General Upendra Dwivedi, the Chief of the Army Staff, we spoke of the differences, the commonalities between the two prime ministers is their effort and the hard work. Even Manmohan Singh would not take offs, not take breaks, work from early in the morning till late into the night. And that really, Sanjay Jha, is amongst the commonalities. We spoke of the differences and there were many, but just the fact that the hugely industrious, self-made people working extremely hard and trying to do the best that they could in very different ways. Far less flamboyance for Dr. Singh, less charisma, less public connect, but very strong commitment to try and build a better India.
No, absolutely. On that, there can be no dispute or debate. People like me, I'm critical of a lot of Mr. Modi's politics in particular. But I do believe that when it comes to giving the India story a fillip, I don't think any political leader in this country is actually someone who's trying to dismantle their own nation. I think, therefore, I always believe that in politics, we should never call each other anti-national, etc. That's a whole lot of gibberish. I think the real story is that you have different methods and models to grow the economy, to make the society one, to make governance better, to focus on whether industry or agriculture or services, or to create an inclusive model, or to kind of play the model of different economic growth stories. So I do believe that both Mr. Modi and definitely Dr. Manmohan Singh, in terms of their commitment or hard work for the country, I don't think that can be challenged. I think the issues that really come up in terms of differences is how do you approach society as a whole? Because I always come to the conclusion that we don't live in an economy, we live in a society. Economics is one part of the society, and that can be a bubble. Like for example, the stock market can grow, but you got to look at what is happening for the farmers.
Leader of the opposition, Rahul Gandhi, there, stepping out now, laid the wreath on the hearse of Dr. Manmohan Singh. It's interesting that he wears just a t-shirt. It's quite cold. It's been one of the coldest days. He's somehow okay with that, and that seems to have become, Sanjay Jha, now a characteristic of his outward personality. The fact that even in peak winters, he's okay with this white t-shirt. It was a blue t-shirt through Parliament when they were making the point around Ambedkarji, but he clearly doesn't feel cold.
Rahul, to be very frank with you, I'm a big advocate of diversity, even in the way we dress.
Sure.
I have never liked the fact that just because you're a politician, you monopolize wearing a white kurta and a white churidar. And as people used to joke that you're dressed in white, but what is your actions all about? So I feel Rahul Gandhi wearing a jeans and a tee, Mr. Modi wearing his band galas. I mean, this is all part of the new protocol, and it's a good thing because politicians, finally, Rahul, are only human beings, right? I mean, we put everybody on a pedestal and make them appear like a demigod.
But that's Mallikarjun Kharge, the Congress president, now going to lay the wreath on Dr. Manmohan Singh's hearse. Mallikarjun Kharge yesterday was in a bitter confrontation with the government over the memorial site. And he'd also worked in Manmohan Singh's cabinet in different capacities, different portfolios. We're seeing the King of Bhutan joining the front row. You're seeing family members, friends gathered right around, the who's who in attendance at the Nigambodh Ghat, where one after another dignitaries are coming forward. We're seeing now Parliamentary Minister Kiran Rijiju come forth to lay the wreath. And it's a moment like this, Ashok Malik, that brings out just the realization of the kind of role in totality that Manmohan Singh played in building this new India. Otherwise you typically look at what you think is right or wrong with people and their politics and their policies. But it's an occasion like this that really sinks in the reality as we see BJP President JP Nadda, also the Health Minister, go to lay the wreath. It brings out the realization of how monumental this life was. One after another, the ministers coming forth to lay the wreath. Sanjay Jha, I was making the point that this is, an occasion which brings out the significance of the life that Manmohan Singh led and the kind of contributions he had to nation building.
Absolutely. Rahul, you think about it, 10 years, 2004 to 14, Vajpayeeji's government has just kind of lost an election. It's a coalition government. The Congress hasn't got the numbers. Actually, it had just 145 members of parliament. The left and the Congress coming together, an academic, intellectual prime minister, and Sonia Gandhi, who's been criticized for being a foreigner. And in these circumstances, here is a man who gave India an economic growth rate, who worked for the poor. And I think, the whole conversation on compassionate capitalism is what Dr. Manmohan Singh really carried forward, that you could coexist with a booming industry, a strong stock market, a very entrepreneurial talent of India creating unicorns, and at the same time you could have a Manrega, you could give food security, you could actually go down to the bottom of the pyramid and lift them up. Because the India story, Rahul, frankly, will never be complete if every citizen of this country is not given good health and education.
That's Amit Shah, the Home Minister. And while many of these people have been bitter critics of the UPA government, as far as the individual persona of Dr. Manmohan Singh is concerned, in private and some in public too have accepted the role that he played in building this new India, and have been full of praise for the fact that he was a self-made man. I mean, going and studying in those years, both at Oxford and at Cambridge, without having been born to privilege, without having parents who could fund that education, and really through dint of academic scholarship, rising in life. It's an example in a socialist country of how somebody through academic merit is able to change his station in life and rise up the corporate ladder, rise up the government ladder through just his academic brilliance.
Yeah. Rahul, frankly, when I look at Dr. Manmohan Singh, I think everyone who's today watching your show and hearing our conversation, Dr. Singh is an inspiration for everyone who wants to be part of public life. That you don't necessarily have to be a career politician working with student organizations, rising up to be a good leader at the highest level. And I think at the end of the day, it's all about integrity, knowledge, skill, commitment, and standards of probity. I mean, that is what should define a leader. So in a great number of ways, to everyone who's watching your program, whether they are part of corporate sector, activism, public policy, you can aspire.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi now stepping forward to lay the wreath on the hearse of Dr. Manmohan Singh, his immediate predecessor. His government really came to power capitalizing on what he was able to project as mistakes of Dr. Manmohan Singh. But in this very solemn moment, coming forth to lay the wreath, and he was amongst the first people to reach the residence of Dr. Manmohan Singh when the body came from the All India Institute of Medical Sciences and was placed at his residence for people to come and pay their last respects. I'm joined by Aarti Jairat, senior journalist who tracked the career over decades of Dr. Manmohan Singh very closely. Aarti, what do you make of the kind of support and the kind of praise that we've seen over the past 48 hours, even from trenchant critics, about the kind of contributions Dr. Manmohan Singh made to the building of a new India?
Well, I think it shows, the impact of, the his policy decisions, the steps he took to open up the economy, to end the nuclear apartheid, with the signing of the India-US civil nuclear deal, and sort of many other things that he did, and it shows the impact that it has had on the country and the progress and development that we have seen over the last 3-4 decades. And Manmohan Singh played a very big role in that progress and, development. And, I'm really so happy to see the, across the political spectrum, from, across the media, from people who criticized him when he was in power and, poured contempt on him, saying that he was a puppet, prime minister and so on, to today recalling his legacy and, sort of expressing their appreciation of how much he has contributed to where India stands today, in terms of the economy, in terms of international standing, and in terms of where we how we are headed on the road ahead, on the road going forward.
Oh, most certainly. We saw Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar pay his last respects to Dr. Manmohan Singh. Before that, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has done it. The King of Bhutan is there as well. We're picking up some of the commentary coming in from Nigambodh Ghat. I'll just try and listen for a moment.
राष्ट्रपति द्रौपदी मुर्मू भी पहुंच गई हैं निगमबोध घाट भावपूर्ण श्रद्धांजलि अर्पित करने के लिए डॉक्टर मनमोहन सिंह को। ये पल भावुक क्षण भारतीय राजनीति, भारतीय अर्थशास्त्र के लिए, जहां भारत ने अपना एक अनमोल रत्न खो दिया। राष्ट्रपति द्रौपदी मुर्मू पहुंच चुकी हैं निगमबोध घाट, जहां पार्थिव शरीर रखा गया है डॉक्टर मनमोहन सिंह का, जो अब हमारे बीच नहीं रहे हैं। श्रद्धा सुमन अर्पित करती हुई राष्ट्रपति द्रौपदी मुर्मू पूर्व प्रधानमंत्री डॉक्टर मनमोहन सिंह को। मनमोहन सिंह की पहचान एक राजनेता से ज़्यादा एक अर्थशास्त्री के तौर पर हमेशा देश याद रखेगा, क्योंकि नाजुक दौर से अर्थव्यवस्था को आगे निकालने का, उदारवादी बनाने का श्रेय जाता है डॉक्टर मनमोहन सिंह को।
Our 25-pounder field guns will be carrying out the 21-gun salute. These are artillery guns from the Second World War, which have been kept back for these ceremonial purposes like Republic Day and then even a state funeral. The salami being given by the military band, after which we'll have the 21-gun salute at Nigambodh Ghat. President Draupadi Murmu leading the services, being joined by the friends, the family, the well-wishers of Dr. Manmohan Singh and senior ministers and the Prime Minister in the current government. An interesting piece of trivia about the guns that are used for the 21-gun salute, which are not actively used but are kept back just for ceremonial purposes, guns which were used during the Second World War and have been retained for an occasion such as this.
तो अंतिम सफ़र पर निकल पड़े हैं डॉक्टर मनमोहन सिंह और उन्हें गार्ड ऑफ ऑनर दिया गया। आप देख सकते हैं कि राष्ट्रपति भी निगमबोध घाट पर मौजूद हैं, जहां उन्होंने श्रद्धा सुमन भावपूर्ण तरीके से अर्पित किए डॉक्टर मनमोहन सिंह को। तो पूर्व प्रधानमंत्री डॉक्टर मनमोहन सिंह के पार्थिव देह को दिल्ली के निगमबोध घाट लाया गया। थोड़ी देर में राजकीय सम्मान के साथ उनका अंतिम संस्कार किया जाएगा। तीनों सेनाओं ने मनमोहन सिंह के पार्थिव
General Anil Chauhan on your screen, currently Chief of the Defence Staff. Several of the reform measures which were originally envisioned during the UPA years and have been carried forward, actually taken forward during the last 10 years. And also the fact, Aarti Chera, that so much of, while each government comes to power trying to take apart the edifice built by the previous government, in actuality, it's a lot about continuation and taking forward the legacy that the previous governments built, and then you just kind of build on that.
No, absolutely. And I think, the fact that today we're seeing, tributes being paid across the political spectrum, it is evidence of precisely what you said, that, governance is a process, and every government that comes in lays a building block on which the next government adds another building block, on which the next government adds another building block. And that's how the country moves forward, progresses, and develops. And there is no question that one of the, chief, persons who laid the foundation for where we are today in terms of the economy and our international standing, Manmohan Singh stands apart because, he was the person who first opened up the economy as finance minister in the Narasimha Rao government, and then, took India to, the sort of high, international stage with the signing of the India-US...
a piece of trivia for our viewers, as part of the state funeral, the national flag draped on the coffin is ceremonially folded and then handed over to the family of the deceased. So at some point in time, this contingent from the Air Force, the Navy and the Army will be handing over the ceremonial flag to the family of Dr. Manmohan Singh. He has three daughters, all of whom are in present. One daughter was in the United States, came down to Delhi yesterday. The flag that was placed in the coffin is then handed over to the family members of Dr. Manmohan Singh. But Sanjay Jha, this is again an important point. You try and break down whatever you think is wrong with the last government, but ultimately, no matter what you say, you end up trying to build on it and to try and take that process and journey further.
Absolutely, Rahul. I mean, the rhetoric apart, in campaigning, you'll find politicians go for each other's throats. I mean, everyone basically kind of breaks barriers of civility because, there is this desperation to score brownie points at every stretch. But the truth is, as you rightly mentioned, the governments are in continuity. I agree with what Ashok Malik said earlier. The GST was also conceptualized during the time of Mr. Vajpayee, and it almost got passed during the time of the UPA and was finally passed by Mr. Modi's government. There were political gridlocks, which is part of the process. So governments are a continuity. For example, if Mr. Modi's government were to lose the next election, the new government will build on the infrastructure. There is no denying that there are positive contributions made by this government. So there will be a lot of hyperbole and hyper-criticism when you are politically in a slugfest. But when it comes to governance, when it comes to government, particularly foreign policy, national security, etc., you will find that all political parties are more or less consistent with the overall framework. So I completely agree with you that the bitterness ends. And if you can see these visuals even on your channel, you'll see at this point of time, it just kind of brings everybody down to ground earth. That no matter who you are, no matter how powerful you are, human beings are mortal. We all have a time and a space to contribute, but we all at some day pass away. And a new leader and a new generation will take over.
And Rahul Gandhi there, he joined the procession, was on the vehicle that was carrying Dr. Singh's coffin. And in some ways seeking to he also said that Dr. Singh was a mentor and a guide and he learned a lot from him. Whereas a lot of public memory is about Rahul unceremoniously tearing apart the bill about netas who had criminal records being in politics. But that is one episode. I think what Rahul's trying to signify over here really is that there was a deeper relationship and that Dr. Singh was someone who was democratic enough to deal with that dissent, even though very clearly he was quite upset when that particular episode happened.
Yeah. Rahul, I remember at that point of time, Dr. Singh was in the United States and he had gone for a very significant visit. And this entire episode basically distracted from his very high-level conversation. And I do feel that Rahul Gandhi had the right intention, but he chose a wrong method to demonstrate his angst with the bill. Eventually, it's a good thing it was taken back, but that entire story got evaporated because his stance was anti-corruption that let a member of parliament who was disqualified or convicted not fight an election, which is a good thing, but it was very sloppily handled. But he apologized to Dr. Singh. He apologized and said it was a mistake. And I think it's a greatness of Dr. Manmohan Singh that he accepted it and understood that to be probably, Rahul Gandhi getting carried away in that flush of enthusiasm or his own moral outrage.
We've seen some criticism, Ashok Malik, from the family of Pranab Mukherjee about a CWC meeting not being called for him. We've seen, what happened during the time of Narasimha Rao, also during the time of Sitaram Kesri. I think the Congress here consciously seeking to send a message and, bringing the entire party and their supporters together on this very solemn occasion to try and undo some of the mistakes that happened when former Prime Minister Narasimha Rao passed. And you've seen also the criticism from Pranab Mukherjee's daughter, Sharmishta.
Certainly, in the case of Prime Minister Narasimha Rao, the fact that his body wasn't allowed into the AICC headquarters and had to be kept outside was deeply disturbing because he was Prime Minister of India. He had served the Congress party for years, for decades, in fact, and that was a very shabby way to treat him. I do believe, though, that the Gandhi family has a much deeper relationship and a much more comfortable relationship with Dr. Singh than it did with Mr. Narasimha Rao or with Mr. Pranab Mukherjee or with Sitaram Kesri. And that is reflected in the manner in which the party has responded to Dr. Singh's passing. It is, at the end of the day, a matter of political comfort. The Gandhi family is very comfortable and was very comfortable with Dr. Singh. And it was not as comfortable with Mr. Rao. That's just a fact of life.
Sanjay Jha, you want to come in on how they're trying to bring the party together because the passing of Narasimha Rao is something that's been, and the manner in which it was handled by the Congress party is something that's been attacked by the BJP quite severely. Here, as Ashok makes the point that the Gandhi family is genuinely closer to Manmohan Singh than they ever were to Narasimha Rao. And secondly, the fact that they're also now conscious of the fact that any slip in protocol will be seen as a slight and will be used by the opposition to attack.
Yeah, Rahul, I think long before I became a public face in politics, I've been working with the Congress back channel since 2004, early, even before they won that election. And one thing which I discovered early in the day, because, I was coming from the corporate sector into politics, is that there is a lot of internal competition within parties. We keep talking about BJP versus Congress, but there is a lot of competition within Congress, no matter what your state is. And there would be a lot of competition within BJP, very internecine, and it can be extremely, disturbing, the kind of levels to which people go. So I do agree with you that, the handling of Mr. Narasimha Rao's funeral was not in good taste at all. Because I don't say that because Mr. Narasimha Rao and I came from the same alma mater of the Ferguson College in Pune apart, I thought he was a distinguished man, a very well-learned man. He was a scholar. And I think no matter what the perceptions within the party by some that, he had become very independent, or the fact that many accused him of being soft Hindutva during the time of the Babri Masjid demolition and a very bad electoral alliance with Mayawati in Uttar Pradesh, etc. The truth is, he was a Congress prime minister. And I think that entire episode was very poorly handled. And I think today's day and age, I'm glad that optics makes the politicians a lot more alert to their public conduct, because it's a good thing that today we are on camera. It's a good thing that there is a social media that catches a politician making some kind of a absurd or a very vitriolic statement and gets exposed, because you lose those fundamental rights to freedom when you become a political personality. Your right to freedom actually ceases because you're expected to not break a traffic light, you're expected to stand in queue, you're not kind of anticipated to speak in a bad way, or show your ire or vent your fury at a airline flight attendant. And I think it's a good thing that there is a greater public scrutiny. Maybe the goldfish bowl life becomes too much, but the truth is politicians must be subjected to greater public scrutiny. And I don't think the Congress handled the PV Narasimha Rao episode at all well. It was shameful. It was
Aarti
and I'm very
Jairat,
honest
you were
about
active on the field at that time. Are you seeing also an active effort to try and ensure that those mistakes are not repeated and that everyone comes together at a time of mourning where a two-term Prime Minister, he's the longest-serving Prime Minister outside of Nehru and Narendra Modi, and therefore coming together in this big show of support and solidarity?
Absolutely. I think it's a combination of factors. One is, of course, trying to correct the mistakes of the past, which they realized they shouldn't have done. The shabby treatment that was meted out to Narasimha Rao after he passed away. The second is, of course, what Ashok Malik said, that there is a much greater degree of comfort with Manmohan Singh than with Pranab Mukherjee or with, you remember, Pranab Mukherjee, she chose Manmohan Singh over stalwarts like Arjun Singh and Pranab Mukherjee when they came to power, and she refused to become Prime Minister. And she chose Manmohan Singh because she felt comfortable with him. She respected his, education, his merit. And Manmohan Singh was not involved in internal Congress politics. All the others were players in Congress politics. Manmohan Singh was not. And I think she felt safe with him, which is why, they had that special relationship. And I think a third factor, Rahul, is that, I think the Congress is very conscious of the fact that they must move in before the BJP appropriates another one of its leaders and, sort of tries to claim, that leader like they have with, Sardar Patel.
No, but that's a good thing in some ways, Ashok Malik, because so much of, the commentary was earlier just around the Nehru-Gandhi family, whereas because it's become such a big pushback from the BJP, therefore, do you feel an extra effort being made to try and claim back the legacy of the likes of Baba Saheb Ambedkar and many others, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, Lal Bahadur Shastri, who are, most of whom were Congress leaders, but not really heralded in the same fashion? That, historical injustice being corrected in the moment.
Look, the fact is the Congress has a long record to answer for, especially in the Indira Gandhi years and after, when many stalwarts were simply ignored and not or relegated to being sort of regional leaders. Patel was a Gujarati regional leader, Kamraj or Rajaji were Tamil leaders as opposed to national leaders, and there was only the family that was national leadership. That was a very problematic, and it has frankly cost the Congress deeply over the years. In fact, Dr. Manmohan Singh's funeral is perhaps the biggest funeral in that sense, commemorated or by the party for a person outside the Gandhi family or the Gandhi Nehru family in several decades now, probably since Mahatma Gandhi. Okay, so there is a record that the Congress has to answer for, and that will always be a handicap for it.
Let's spend. Okay, go on, make your point.
Yeah. The other point is, this thing about the BJP appropriating people. I'll give you one example where the Congress I thought was very churlish, or the UPA was churlish, and Dr. Singh I wanted it another way, and his advisors have said so. In the 10 years the UPA was in power, it did not sufficiently acknowledge somebody like Mr. Vajpayee or give him a Bharat Ratna. It took the Modi government to come in and 6 months later give Mr. Vajpayee the Bharat Ratna. It was easily doable. It was with a great signal. And I think part of the Congress's fear is that what if the Modi government now gives Dr. Manmohan Singh the Bharat Ratna? And it will make the Congress this record vis-a-vis Mr. Vajpayee look even more stark.
Aarti Jared, do you think they'd consider that? A Manmohan Singh for Bharat Ratna? There's so much he's done as the liberalizer of the Indian economy, the Indo-US nuclear deal. There's so much positive. I mean, there are also bitter critics of his government and what happened, especially in the last few years of the Manmohan Sarkar. Do you think they'd consider Bharat Ratna for Manmohan Singh?
Well, I mean, that's a question we have to ask Prime Minister Modi, because the decision will rest with him. But, given the fact that, Prime Minister Modi took this unusual step of a televised address, it was not an address as such, but a fairly long televised soundbite extolling Manmohan Singh's contributions, to the progress and development of the nation. It's possible that they will consider a Bharat Ratna for him, and maybe he's very deserving of it, because I really think, at least in the last 30 years, although Vajpayee made significant contributions, but I think Manmohan Singh's contributions, are kind of, because they started as finance minister and went on to when he was prime minister, So he had a much longer period during which he could, come up with policies which we are seeing the benefits of today.
He was also a man, Sanjay Jha, much ahead of his time. I remember this anecdote in Sanjay Baru's book, The Accidental Prime Minister, where in an interview that Sanjay had done, he had a couple of paragraphs about the South Korean model of growth. And for some reason, the desk editor left those paragraphs out. And Sanjay Baru writes how at that time, Manmohan Singh was very upset with Baru for not having included those paragraphs. And it's only years later when the South Korean model became something to look up to. And Manmohan Singh, from the time he learnt about international trade, breaking protectionism as part of his PhD dissertation, he was obviously a mind ahead of his time, thinking about what needed to be done, thinking about what India could learn and from where, much before some of those ideas became commonplace in conversation.
Yeah, absolutely, Rahul. Like, for example, because he was such a learned economist, but at the same time, not just an academic genius, he realized that, you can't have, it's not about a free market fundamentalist economy, or it's not about becoming socialist communist. You needed a fine blend for both. And he recognized that the debate in India was about either or. It's not either or. I mean, you ask anybody today that any country, even the most affluent countries in the West, particularly Europe, have welfare models. Not that their GDPs are not high or their per capita income is not high. I mean, UK is like 20 times our GDP, but they have free healthcare. So how do you explain this dichotomy? I think he understood that very well. And I think this whole South Korean model of, champions of industry who lead the entire economic growth model, he understood it early that you needed to back industry across the board. I think one of the ironies of his life is the fact that during that UPA 2 second half of that whole conversation on policy paralysis, it must have hurt him a lot that his government got criticized for crony capitalism, because he was totally against that model. He believed in more of a ground up economic growth model through small scale, medium scale, as well as industry across the board. I don't think he liked titans to emerge who would become monopolists or, part of a plutocratic structure. So that's the paradox of his life. But as I say, Rahul, in politics or in life, you don't really get everything that you want. And life is about managing these contradictions.
The Antim Ardas currently going on at the Nigambodh Ghat. where the body of Dr. Manmohan Singh has been prepared for the cremation. It's also interesting how Rahul Gandhi is joining the family in a very clear sign of solidarity, wanting to be a part of the moment, and it's a good time as any to speak just for a moment, Aarti Jairat, about the relationship between the Gandhi family and in particular Sonia Gandhi, who really picked Manmohan Singh as the agent of her government. I mean, she had a choice, she had a plethora of choices in fact, and yet she picked Manmohan Singh for this prime assignment.
You know, Rahul, actually, if we look back in hindsight, it was, I think, quite clear that Manmohan Singh was going to be her choice if she didn't become prime minister. You remember that those tumultuous days of 1999 when Sonia Gandhi brought down the Vajpayee government and then tried to form an alternative government. And when she went to Rashtrapati Bhavan, she took Manmohan Singh with her. She did not take any of the other stalwarts like Arjun Singh or Pranab Mukherjee. She took Manmohan Singh. And I was told by a very senior CPM leader who had it, who was told this by President Narayanan himself, that she had told President Narayanan that Manmohan Singh was her choice for prime minister of this alternative government. Unfortunately, there are a lot of politics when word sort of spread that Manmohan Singh, she was looking at Manmohan Singh as a possible prime minister. Then all the politics came in and some Samajwadi Party then pulled out and refused to give a letter of support and the whole idea fell through. So, she has been close to Manmohan Singh. And this is the interesting thing, that given her tension-filled relationship with Narasimha Rao, and given the fact that Manmohan Singh was Narasimha Rao's finance minister, and together with Narasimha Rao, they scripted this whole opening up of the Indian economy, she still welcomed Manmohan Singh and began to trust him and rely on him. So Manmohan Singh is one of the few people who bridged that gap and was able to earn the respect and trust of Sonia Gandhi.
And that's one of the most remarkable things about Manmohan Singh.
Absolutely.
That when, for example, the Indira government gets replaced by the Janata Party government in the late 70s, even then they want him back. It's not as if they don't want him, and he's able to transcend political power shifts across generations, where even Rahul Gandhi is close to him, Sonia Gandhi was close to him, he was very close to Indira Gandhi. If you look at his daughter's book, the whole idea that he was offered the post of RBI governor, and he says, oh, that's a very strenuous job, and Indira Gandhi asks him, so what's your age? He says, I'm 50, and Indira Gandhi reportedly tells him, well, it's too young to be worried about strain, you need to go do this. So here's someone who appears, Ashok Malik, at different times reticent. When things don't go his way, he wants to resign and say that, okay, this is not okay. And he resigned a few times when he was finance minister and charges were leveled or things happened in a way that didn't. And yet each of the patrons of power, those who were in a position to determine his fate, they always want him on their team. You're on mute, Ashok.
Sorry. Two things here, Rahul. One, Dr. Singh is obviously was an extremely capable man, an erudite man, a man who understood his job. And everyone wanted to work with him because of that reason. I understand that. He was also a survivor. And I don't mean this as criticism. I'm not being facetious here. I mean this with admiration. Because if you need to achieve something in a very complex and challenging environment, and few environments are more challenging than a polity or than government, then the first thing you should do is preserve your longevity, because if you're simply not around long enough, you'll achieve nothing. And he was very astute in managing that as well. And again, I mean this as praise. I mean this as admiration. I'm not being critical here. So he managed to make himself a part of the system and be useful to the system and work with various strands of people. That is a remarkable quality which I think needs to be appreciated and emulated, not just in public life, but frankly in any complex environment.
Funeral service, also known as the Antim Sanskar, the final rites currently going on, prayers being recited for the departed soul. The focus really for Manmohan Singh and also for the Sikh religion in general, always on simplicity. The body being thought of as a vessel, temporary vessel for the soul, which ultimately merges with God. And that ceremony currently going on, Rahul Gandhi joining the family and the friends in the recitation of the final prayers, the Antim Sanskar currently going on. Sikhs believe in reincarnation with the ultimate goal of liberation, mukti, where the soul reunites with the divine. The wife of Manmohan Singh, Gurcharan Kaur, they're seen in those images, and a lot of the social awkwardness which people who met Manmohan Singh speak about and write about, she was the lubricant, the power behind Manmohan Singh, or just the person who would facilitate things in a way that the ball kept rolling without things getting awkward. And a very powerful woman in her own right, somebody who stayed very low-key but had a very steely determination and role to play from behind the curtains. Aarti.
Yes, absolutely. As reticent and introverted as Manmohan Singh was, Sharon Kaur was quite the opposite. She was much more eloquent and she was very warm, very welcoming. And if you remember, when Manmohan Singh's name was announced as Prime Minister in 2004, it was she who opened the doors of their house to the media and welcomed them and gave sound bites and so on. And all very, but again, because it's Manmohan Singh's family, and Manmohan Singh believed, did not like showmanship. He did not believe in flamboyance. He was a very understated man. So although Gurcharan Kaur was very eloquent in everything, they all understood that that was the family rule, that they do not push themselves forward, come across as being aggressive or demanding or too flamboyant or, too showy. It was a very nice combination actually between of the two of them.
And it's something that he worked very hard on, Sanjay, wanting to ensure always that he wasn't seen as taking credit, which is a double-edged sword, frankly, because as Prime Minister, you want to be certain that people give you credit for what you've done, because otherwise all of the rights and the schemes that his government came out with, he didn't get adequate credit for, because it never was a priority. But he always wanted to ensure that his work would, that way he had a very academic foundation. Let my work do the talking. I don't need to talk about my work.
Yeah. But that Rahul, based on my experience, it can be a double-edged sword, really. If you look at the 2004 to 9 phase, people actually loved the fact that here was a prime minister who was focused on his work, was not available all over the place for any PR or campaigning or propaganda. He let the party take care of that, and he delivered on what he promised. But you remember that 2009 to 14, the fact that Dr. Singh wasn't as visible and communicating when the crisis began hitting the party became his drawback. And this is why I say that politics is so fluid. His singular strength between 2004 to 9 became his huge liability between 2009 to 14. And honestly, since I was part of the party during that crazy turbulent phase, I can tell you the Congress really paid a price, because all the three leaders, Dr. Singh chose to be reticent, Rahul Gandhi was very contemptuous of engaging with media, and Mrs. Sonia Gandhi was struggling with health and had never been media savvy anyway. So when the top three leaders went silent mode and the rest of the party was dealing with a coalition, each one jockeying for power, that's where the UPA really struggled, which is a tragedy, because the legacy of Dr. Manmohan Singh, as we are hearing today, was quite remarkable.
Oh, most certainly. But there were battles he thought he could fight and win, and wanted to fight, and there were battles, strangely, which he never was interested in fighting, trying to manage public perception, trying to ensure that the work that he was doing was amplified and presented before the people. Ashok Malik, those are, to my mind, quite basic priorities, and yet for some reason, despite being in public office, public opinion and trying to build public opinion or sway public opinion never seemed like much of a priority for him.
I was reminded of something I once read. I can't remember by whom. Margaret Thatcher, in an interview, or not an interview, in a conversation, was asked, when do you give interviews? When things are going well? She said, no, actually, I give interviews when things are going badly, because that's when you need to go out there and explain your point of view. When things are going well, don't rock the boat. Let people think everything is fine. what Sanjay Jha has just said about UPA 2 is very astute. It actually brought to the fore the political limitations of a very wise and intellectual prime minister such as Dr. Manmohan Singh. He did not understand modern communication, political communication. He didn't understand social media. He didn't understand. He was from the wrong generation, to be honest. My father wouldn't have understood social media either. He didn't go out there and project the achievements of his government. He didn't go up and talk up the public mood. His party didn't take it seriously enough. And that caused a blowback, and that caused a humiliating defeat in 2014, from which, frankly, the Congress has still not recovered. Yes, the UPA period, with all its achievements and with all respect to Dr. Singh, taught us that there only so far you can go with a government which is essentially a diarchy, with a manager as prime minister, a very astute and intellectually gifted bureaucrat and technocrat as prime minister, and a very different person as the political leader. In the end, that is not how politics naturally evolves. The leader has to be political leader as well as the leader of the government. That is the more natural way, whether it was in the case of Nehru or Indira Gandhi or now Narendra Modi.
A very sober,
anywhere in the world.
somber funeral service this. Remember, Sikhs are not encouraged to be, overly display their grief. So there's no wearing black or veiling. It's very quiet, very sober. The prayers are all to God, in remembrance of God, rather than mourning excessively. Always tends to be the focus during the Sikh the Sikh funeral services. We see people like Manjinder Sirsa, who's now with the BJP, also helping out with the last rites. A lot of focus on seva, and they're also hugely religious. I mean, religion playing an important role in Dr. Manmohan Singh's life, and he always thought of himself as a devout Sikh, and that's something that he never overplayed. Aarti Jarat, that's the interesting thing. Unlike some people who wear their religion on their sleeves and have it in their face, he was deeply religious without ever overplaying the religious card.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at his family, Rahul, his eldest daughter, Upinder, she has short hair. She has not married a Sikh. She's married, out of her community. And, Manmohan Singh was broad-minded and liberal enough to accept that. Although he himself was a deeply religious man and, I believe went to the Gurdwara quite often and so on. So, being religious doesn't mean you have to be, bigoted or be, kind of assertive about your religiosity. You can be liberal, you can be broad-minded, you can be accepted, you can accept other religions and, people of other faiths, and yet be very religious and committed to your belief of, what is God and, what is seva. So I think Manmohan Singh was really a living example of that.
For sure, and choosing also to work, not taking any break. So much is said, Sanjay Jha, now about Narendra Modi's style of functioning, where he's working 24/7. For those who worked in Manmohan Singh's office in the PMO at that time, said he too worked non-stop. I mean, there weren't those many public functions. He wasn't speaking to different kinds of audiences during the day, but behind the scenes he was working, from the moment he woke up to the moment he slept, non-stop, 24/7, 365.
When we stopped earlier, I have never been critical of Mr. Modi or the BJP's communication, because if you're in public life, you're in politics, your political communication is the key to perception, and very often in politics, perception overrides reality. And I do want to quote to you Oscar Wilde's quote that probably I wish Dr. Singh had practiced, that there is only one thing in the world worse than being talked about, and that is not being talked about. And I think if you are in politics, you've got to do the good things and you got to be seen to be doing the good things. And when you make a mistake, you should have the ability, without indulging in a sleight of hand or doing any falsification or fake news, but you got to be able to handle that crisis. And I do believe that is really where the fault line of the UPA 2 in the last 2 years was. I mean, that was the real weakness, honestly.
The Sikh funeral service, deeply rooted in the teachings of the Guru Granth Sahib, death viewed not as an end, but as the continuation of a journey, as a return to God. You see, Dr. Montek Singh Ahluwalia, a renowned economist who was extremely close to Manmohan Singh. In fact, amongst the people who Manmohan Singh brought into government, and that Aarti Jairat is something that Manmohan Singh was very proud of. His ability to spot talent, bring them in and convince them. Ultimately, these were highly accomplished professionals, economists, who chose to give up lucrative lives in India, internationally, drawing dollar-denominated checks to want to come back to live a far less fancy life and try and adjust in the hurly-burly of Indian governance.
And I think it was entirely due to their respect for Manmohan Singh and their admiration of his, qualities, that they were ready to make those sacrifices and come back and hope that they will be of some help and service to their nation. And, this is a great thing about Manmohan Singh, that although he himself was so erudite and so learned and knew so much, he consulted and took along people. I mean, Montek Ahluwalia was a very key element in his decision-making process when he was finance minister and then later when he was prime minister. Raghuram Rajan, was a very key voice, in the prime minister's circle. So, Manmohan Singh was somebody who listened and who, discussed. And he had that confidence in himself that he could meet these people on their level, on their intellectual level, and talk to them and convince them or be convinced by them if necessary. And that is really how governance should be. But, I want to go back to something Sanjay Jha said, if you don't mind. This lack of communication in the last 2-3 years of the UPA, which actually led to its defeat, I completely blame the party for that. Manmohan Singh was never a communicator. He was never an orator. He was never a public speaker. It was the party's duty to politically communicate to the people whatever they had achieved during his tenure as prime minister. And I think the party deeply failed him at that time.
Oh, most certainly. But as we've been saying, this is not really a moment to be talking about failures. We've had enough and more opportunity over the last several years to do that. This is an opportunity to reflect on the life and times and also the contribution of this man who rose from extremely humble beginnings. And that anecdote, of the time when he's studying in the United Kingdom, he's conscious of the fact that he has he has a pagdi, he has a dadi, he has long hair, and doesn't want to be seen by the other boys with his hair all open. So he wakes up early in the morning, 4:30, wakes up, goes to bathe, does this with cold water, and gets ready much before the others, so that nobody can see him with his hair all open, because he's conscious of what they'd say or what they'd think about him. And the story he gave to other students who were with him at Oxford at the time was that it was good for the body to have a bath with cold water, whereas actually he later confessed when people asked him about it that it was just so that nobody could see him, Aarti Jairat, with that long hair. So he was also very conscious of how people perceived him and willing to wake up much early. I mean, imagine if you're studying late into the night, wanting to wake up that early in the morning to get ready just so that nobody saw you in a condition where you weren't comfortable.
Absolutely. He's a man of extreme simplicity. Rahul, I think in all the years that I saw him in public life, I don't think he ever changed the color of his turban. It was always blue. He was not one who wore flashy turbans or red or whatever. It was always blue. And, his suits were always kind of gray or blue. His lifestyle was very simple. If you went to his house, you would see that it was full of books. And very, very simply done. His eating habits were very simple. I think some of the members of his family felt that they were too simple, but he was like that. He was a man who believed in simple living and high thinking. And, look where it got him. And I think that is really one of the things that would be worth emulating from him, because we somehow seem to have forgotten those values, that, say, previous generations grew up with, of simple living, high thinking, merit, educating yourself, getting ahead, by sheer hard work and education. These are all values which need to come back into our lives, and I hope that now, as we are recalling his legacy and his life and his times, some of these values will start ringing and resonating with the younger generation.
And also someone who really was an icon for middle class India. He was born in very modest beginnings. His family moves from Punjab in Pakistan to India. He stays with his uncle and really grows up in a large family, and therefore has to take care of himself. And yet, given his middle class life, he always wants to stay rooted in those values of being, is very amorphous. But go back a few decades, the values, hard work, dedication, integrity, wanting to rise through the dint of your ability, those, Sanjay Jha, were very strong middle class values. And in many ways, Manmohan Singh epitomized that middle class urge to rise on the dint of your ability.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Rahul, go back to 2009. If you look at the cities, Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, they all voted entirely for the Congress party. There's a reason behind that. That was a phase where you found consumer loans went up. People were watching satellite television. Mobile penetration went all across the country. There was an exponential boom in terms of people buying mobile phones and getting access. And therefore, I think India saw even the big infrastructure shift happened during his time, and which has now been taken forward by Mr. Modi's government. So he realized that if you look at India's population, the wealth has always been concentrated with a few. It may have got skewed later, but it's always been in the hands of a few. And large pockets of India were really poor. So he recognized early that you need to create a burgeoning middle class, because that will define the success of the economy, the society, and the country. And I think because of his sensibilities growing up, as you rightly said, from very modest upbringing, didn't have access to facilities, was not a rich man. And he realized that if you could empower Indians economically, socially, that's where the story lies. So the story of India's middle class began with this gentleman, with this remarkably distinguished man, and I think a wonderful human being. I think, anybody who's met him, and I have been very privileged to meet him on a couple of occasions, his humility was extraordinary. I met him when he was a prime minister fleetingly, and the fact that he pulled me out from a crowd of people to say some words to me was like heaven. I remember calling my wife from Delhi and saying, he called me out and he had these nice things to say about me. So that, I think, signaled his greatness, and the fact that he's always been so rooted at the ground level. A sad day, but if we get inspired and, as Aarti rightly said, bring back those old values, decency, culture, character, but add political communication to it, I think we'll all be better off.
And also, Ashok Malik, so much being made of the fact that he did these long press conferences, not too many, but a handful, taking questions, answering them at length, and that being contrasted with the decision of the Prime Minister not to do press conferences. He speaks much more than Manmohan Singh did. So he was earlier, positioned as a Prime Minister who didn't speak, didn't take questions, but now the fact that he did those press conferences, lengthy press conferences at that, is now something that's being highlighted by the supporters of Manmohan Singh.
Full credit to him for having done press conferences, but quite honestly, a press conference is only one example of modern political communication. Modern political communication is a 360-degree sort of phenomenon. Press conferencing is one way of doing it. There are several other ways. In fact, I would say a lot of things have to be done in parallel. And if you go back to UPA 2, it was really at the cusp of a change in the communication technology environment, not just in India, but globally. And I don't believe the UPA to political leadership, and I include Dr. Manmohan Singh here, I include the party, I include many people there, of course, quite understood how communication technology and reaching out to audiences was changing. They were still stuck in an earlier age. It was a learning process that cost them the 2014 election. Uh, I think the successor government was much more astute in that sense, and well, perhaps today's Congress is also learning those tricks and those lessons much more sharply, of course, in opposition.
It is, but it's also about instinct. It's about how someone like Narendra Modi had
Absolutely.
that just instinctively, whereas it took a lot of time, pushbacks, and experience for others to learn what they could have known instinctively. So it's also about political acumen and instinct. The last rites of Dr. Manmohan Singh, the preparation currently underway at the Nigambodh Ghat in Delhi. We'll take a quick break. We'll have more for you when we come back on the other side. Aishwarya Paliwal will be joining you.
हजारों जवाबों से अच्छी है मेरी खामोशी न जाने कितने सवालों को आबरू रखी
Motorola Razr 50 Ultra comes with Google Gemini.
हो जा रंगीला रे with Motorola's incredible range of smartphones.
Hello,
What you see at the moment, visuals coming in from the Nigambodh Ghat now, we are seeing the final preparation is now being done for the cremation to begin very shortly. The final kirtan is now over. Cremation over now, and you see all the dignitaries. Manmohan Singh's wife, his Gulsharan Kaur, his other family members now slowly making their way and slowly moving out. The slogans that you hear, Congress supporters now remembering Dr. Manmohan Singh, the former Prime Minister of our country. Images coming in from the Nigambodh Ghat. Cremation almost over, and India is now bidding adieu to Manmohan Singh, the former Prime Minister, an ace economist, and the man who reformed Indian economy. We are now seeing Prime Minister Narendra Modi in talks with the family members of Dr. Manmohan Singh, the top brass of the BJP, seated in the front row. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, Home Minister Amit Shah, BJP President JP Nadda, the President Draupadi Murmu, the top brass of the Congress, along with other leaders, Atishi and the Delhi LG, all of them present for this farewell that has now been given to the former Prime Minister of our nation, Dr. Manmohan Singh. A pragmatic man, Dr. Manmohan Singh, most of the people who have worked with him say that he knew exactly what was possible politically. And within that realm, he made sure that he followed through what he thought, what he believed in. The cremation of Dr. Manmohan Singh, the former Indian Prime Minister, almost over. The top leaders of the Bharatiya Janata Party, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, President Draupadi Murmu. My colleague Amit Bharadwaj is now joining me on the story. Amit, the cremation is almost over. We are seeing how the dignitaries are now making way. They are moving away from Nigambodh Ghat. Family members of Dr. Manmohan Singh, along with the top brass of the BJP, now slowly moving away, making way. Not just the Congress, but we also saw Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Home Minister Amit Shah, the top dignitaries of not just the BJP and the Congress, but we also saw Atishi, Delhi Chief Minister, leader of the Aam Aadmi Party, also at the Nigambodh Ghat to pay her respect to Dr. Manmohan Singh.
Right, Aishwarya, this is a historic moment and nobody wants to miss out on that opportunity. You had President Draupadi Murmu, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, all of them reaching here at the Nigambodh Ghat, and even right now the security continues to be tight. On the right hand side is the President and Prime Minister's carcade, which is on the standby. The funeral is almost over, the cremation process is almost over, and right now the full state honor, every protocol of that is being followed. It's in the last stage that the visuals that we're getting from inside Nigambodh Ghat. And once that process would be over, that, a salute from the 21 cannons, that's also over. After that, you'll be seeing that the President Draupadi Murmu, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Defence Minister, all of them will start leaving Nigambodh Ghat after that process is over. And you rightly pointed out, Dr. Manmohan Singh's career has been so long and diversified that nobody can claim that their lives have not been touched by Dr. Singh's achievements and the work that he did for the country. Right from being economic advisor in the Commerce Ministry to being the chief economic advisor in the Finance Ministry to RBI governor and becoming the finance minister of the country, bringing that economic revolution that India needed in the 90s, and after that foreign direct investment initiatives. So each of them, even before he became the Prime Minister of the country, he was working round the clock to ensure India comes on board on the economic revolution wagon, and along with that, India's middle class gets an opportunity to achieve its ambitions, because from believing in limited resources, fulfilling your requirements in those limited resources, Dr. Manmohan Singh's economy opened all aspects and opportunities for India's ambitious middle class. So that way he has touched lives, changed lives across the country. And today, as we speak, you have leaders from across the party line, ideologies, offering tribute to Dr. Manmohan Singh. Even yesterday we had seen as to how Chandrababu Naidu, Hemant Soren, Arvind Kejriwal, all these leaders were rushing to Teen Motilal Nehru Marg, the residence, the last abode of Dr. Singh. And after that, today, as the funeral is happening, the last rites are happening, everybody, the highest of dignitaries, not only from the country, by the way, but also several of the representatives from missions from the foreign countries were here to ensure that if they are in the national capital, they must participate in the ceremony where India is offering their final tribute to Dr. Manmohan Singh, final tribute to his mortal remains. And that is why you had all these dignitaries from the missions of different countries reaching here at Nigambodh Ghat. And soon we'll be getting those visuals of the President and Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Defence Minister stepping out. And so will the leader of opposition and Congress party leaders step out once the funeral process is over. Aishwarya.
Amit, stay on with me. We have got visuals of the family members and wife of Dr. Manmohan Singh, along with Rahul Gandhi, Sonia Gandhi, as the last of the kirtans are now being done. The top brass of the Congress party in attendance: Rahul Gandhi, Sonia Gandhi, Mallikarjun Kharge, the Congress president, wife of Dr. Manmohan Singh, along with his immediate family members, and the top leadership of the Congress party in attendance. The kirtan, which is very, very sacred to the Sikh community, the last of the kirtans, the ardas, is now being done. Karnataka Chief Minister Siddaramaiah also in attendance. Karnataka Deputy Chief Minister D.K. Shivkumar also in attendance. Visuals on your screens coming in from the Nigambodh Ghat. The cremation of the former Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, almost over. Priyanka Gandhi Vadra, Rahul Gandhi, meeting the family members, wife of Dr. Manmohan Singh. My colleague Pooja is also joining me from Nigambodh Ghat. Pooja, you know, as someone who spoke very little, did not take part in almost all the debates, but gave space so that other people could actually give out their views. This was the brilliance of Dr. Manmohan Singh. And this is exactly what most of the people who have worked with him can also vouch for. You know, over the past 48 hours, we have heard how the top leaders, top economists are also saying that one of the outstanding qualities of Dr. Manmohan Singh was